Yeah, let's just start with the rankings then.
Yeah.
So, here I'll let you start.
Okay. Well, obviously because 1 and 2 in the new SEC, because obviously divisions are no longer like how we're going to be going this. My 1 and 2 are Georgia at number 1. I don't know how you feel, Mr. Georgia fan, but
Now,
I don't think
question:
they lose a game this year.
will these rankings indicate your championship predictions?
Yes. My top 2 teams are the 2 teams going to the SEC championship in December.
Gotcha.
And my
Okay.
top 2 teams are Georgia at number 1, undefeated regular season. I don't have them losing a game, and quite frankly, I don't really think they have a game that they would lose on their schedule. I know there's a lot of people talking about Alabama, but Alabama having a brand new coach, it's a little bit different. I don't see them struggling with Clemson. And to be completely honest with you, the rest of their SEC schedule isn't the craziest thing in the world. They don't play all the hardest teams this year, outside of obviously Alabama. Um, but I think they sweep through. They have an undefeated regular season, and then my number 2 is Texas, who I think only drop a game, and I think Texas is going to be just as good as they were last year, if not better. And I think the only game that could be a slip up for them, in my opinion, is the A&M game, because a big time rivalry. I think A&M has a big time improvement at head coach with Mike Elko, and Mike
Mhm.
Elko is a guy who was able to turn Duke around within a year. That's a guy who I think will have Texas A&M relatively competitive, and I think they'll be good for that. I think that's going to be a great game. That's why I have my SEC championship. But further from down that, I have my number 3 team in the conference is Missouri. I wasn't as high on Missouri as a lot of people until recently. I've kind of really fallen in love with that roster. Drinkowitz, I thought Drinkowitz was going to get fired before last year started, but I mean he's figured it out. Like I really enjoy what he's done at Missouri this past season, and I think he's going to keep that momentum into this next year. And then going down from there, I got my number 4 team is Alabama, 10-2, which for any other program not named Alabama would be a great season. I just think it's going to be too much for Alabama with, Georgia is as good as they've ever been. Texas is in there now. Missouri's good. Ole Miss is good. It's a lot more crowded for Alabama than it was just a season before. And with, you know, having a new coach, having a coach who works a lot different from Nick Saban. I mean, it's just different going forward for them. It's a lot different for everything they're going to be doing. So I just don't think they're going to be able to keep the momentum of years prior. I think they backslide just a little bit. They drop 2 games. They play a little bit more sloppy, especially at the beginning of the year. Not the highest on Alabama. I know there's some people who think they'll still run the SEC. I just don't see it this year. My number 5 team is I have Ole Miss. I think they'll be good. I don't think they're actually going to contend for a championship this year. I just don't think Lane Kiffin is a championship caliber head coach yet. I think he still has a little bit to go before he can do that. He's just not recruiting at that level. He gets those transfers, but he cannot get guys and develop them. And my number 6 team is LSU at 9-3. I have LSU going. I think LSU is going to continue kind of where they were last year. I think they'll be a little bit better on defense, but I mean they're losing a Heisman quarterback. Even with is it Nussmeier? Is that how you say his name?
Yes.
Nussmeier. He looks
Nussmeier.
really good. Nussmeier. He looks really good, but I can't be super high on them until I see it actually in action in real meaningful gameplay. Just because you're losing a Heisman quarterback. I mean, for the production is going to drop a little bit at least, and they struggled last year really badly on defense. So I just don't see them in that upper echelon of teams just yet.
No, I mean I agree
I,
with there.
yeah. My number 7 team, I think I'm a little bit higher on this team than a lot of others. I got Oklahoma at number 7. I just think they're good, but they're not great. You know what I mean? They're a solid team that goes to a decent bowl game that everybody forgets about. They're going to be a decent matchup, but I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about Oklahoma? Like, be honest with me. I think they're going to be incredibly above average.
So I don't think it's a bad team. Like I think they're recruiting well. I think
Yeah, me too.
I don't have crazy high expectations for them, only because their schedule is a little tough this year.
Yeah.
If if they didn't have to play, this gauntlet of a schedule, I think they'd be fine. But we could be looking at them at the end of the year saying there's a 7-5 team that is a lot better than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
I think Jackson Arnold's a good quarterback. I think that Brent Venables has got that place reestablished after that kind of that fluke year, not last year's first. I guess it would be his first year where they couldn't stop anyone defensively. They were mediocre offensively. They just struggled. But like last year, you saw with Dylan Gabriel, how good that team can be. The defense played a lot better. Now, third year, they got some guys. They got a really nice recruit out of the portal from TCU, a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Like this is, and like that, there were other high power SEC teams that were competing for that guy too. So the fact that Oklahoma got him, I think says a lot. And it says that, will they have the firepower this year? No, I don't think, but like the first 3 weeks should be all W's. And then it's the big one. They get Tennessee at home for their first game in the SEC. Then they got to go to Auburn. And then right after they get a bye going into Texas, then South Carolina at home, and then at Ole Miss, at Missouri, and then finish off the year with Bama at home, and then at LSU. So they don't get like really a break. That back half of that schedule outside of Maine on November 2nd is a tough one. So again, like I think we're looking at a team that 8-4, 7-5, but like good. Like I think that's
like a good. Yeah.
Now they could completely just defy everyone's opinions and just go 9-3, 10-2 on the year, and just shock everyone. Would not be completely surprised. That would be like the high ceiling. Your ceiling, your back down to earth ceiling to floor is that 7-5, 8-4 range.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. That's why I had them. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be slightly better than the teams I have below them. Because at number 8, I have Tennessee. I got Tennessee being a little bit worse than them, just because I don't know. Tennessee's been weird for me like the last year or so. Ever since they lost that game to Georgia, the year where they were briefly number 1 in the country, they've been kind of weird for me. In which they're a good team, but they're not like a dominant team. They're not going to blow anybody out on the road, but they're not going to like give up a lot of points either. So to me, I'm like Tennessee is just they're good. They're not great. They're not going to beat anybody way better than them. They're not going to put like top teams on upset alert, but they're going to win some games. They're going to beat who they should be. And that puts me at number 9, Texas A&M. I got Texas A&M having a bounce back year after last year. I said it earlier when I was talking about Texas. I think Mike Elko is a great coach. Like genuinely, I think Mike Elko could very easily in his first year in the SEC win Coach of the Year. Just because I think he's gonna rebuild that Texas A&M like brand in a way that they don't fall apart at the offensive line every single time. Like they snap the ball, right? They don't have to fear their quarterback is going to get injured in week 2 the second they face a team with the defensive line. Like, because I mean, under Jimbo Fisher, I don't know how you are, but every single year their quarterback got hurt. Every single year he was head coach, there was a time where their quarterback missed significant portions of the year with injury.
There was always a point where they underperformed across the board, and whether it was injury related or not,
But to me, because it carried on from at the end of his time at Florida State, it was an issue too, where that dude just did not build an offensive line for his quarterbacks. And his quarterbacks always would suffer because of it. I mean, DeAndre Francois got injured, Kellen Mond got injured, Haynes King got injured, Connor Wegman got injured. All those guys missed significant time in college.
I'm sure Max Johnson took a beating at some point too.
I think Max Johnson also got hurt too.
Would not be shocked.
Let me see.
Yeah, he's at North Carolina now, but
yeah.
No, I think.
Yep, he cracked a
Elko's. Nice. Yeah, I think Elko's going to be able to like establish relationships better than Jim Fisher did with recruits. They're going to be able to build, I think, better team chemistry because Jimbo was more just. Yeah, you're going to see a better culture around Elko. I mean, look what he did at Duke, and so now you're looking at A&M, better resources, better recruits are going to be coming in.
Yeah,
and I just think like they will if Wegman plays good enough and he just doesn't. I think he doesn't turn the ball over and he's just plays solid football. This should be a decent team. Am I expecting them to defy everyone's expectations? No. Could they? Possibly.
They could.
They have a better shot than Oklahoma, but they're kind of like in the tier just above them where you're not expecting them to win the SEC, but they could certainly cause some fits and contend, I think, all year.
I think if any team, they're a team that could put teams on upset alert. You know what I mean?
They could.
Just because they already, under Fisher, had a good defense, and now they have a coach who can take advantage of those athletes.
I mean, week 3, the first game of the year, they get Notre Dame at home, and then they're at Florida week 3.
Yeah.
So that right there, there's your Big 2 test right there out of the gate. If they can win both of them, then you start putting everyone on watch because if they win those 2, they should be 4-0 heading to Arkansas. Then you have Missouri.
Top 15 in the country too at that point. Like
honestly, the schedule works out. I mean, Notre Dame at Florida, Arkansas at home. You get Missouri at home. Yeah. You have to go to Mississippi State, but you get LSU and Texas at home. You have to go to Jordan-Hare and then at South Carolina. But outside of that, you get all the big games at home.
You get Texas at home, which is huge.
Now, I will say South Carolina and Auburn is nothing to mess around with. So is Florida. But if they can win those games, they are a sleeper playoff team. If Wegman can play at the standard that he knows he can, and we've seen him sometimes play it, look out.
I mean, especially since we saw what Elko was able to do with Riley Leonard. I mean, he can put quarterbacks in a position to succeed. He's a guy who can. I'm excited for A&M this year, personally. But
for sure,
I'll move on. So number 10, I had Auburn. I got Auburn performing slightly better than they did last year. I got them going 7-5. I just think they're a couple pieces away from being anything special in the SEC, and it's just bad luck for them being in the conference right this second. Just because they're trying to build, with Hugh Freeze, new coach, new staff, but they're not doing it quick enough for how much this conference is top loaded with talent. Every team has a ton of talent, and even when you're in Auburn, who they've signed some pretty good guys, they've recruited pretty well, especially this past year. They got some guys out of the transfer portal the last 2 years. They're still a step below even Oklahoma, A&M, Tennessee. They're significantly still below those guys. They're at for me, they're at the Kentucky level, where out of conference games they'll look like masters. They're gonna play I don't know, who do they play on their schedule this year out of conference?
Who? Auburn plays. Here, I'll show you. They have Alabama, A&M, Cal, New Mexico, which again, these New Mexico teams you never want to mess with. And then
they lost to New Mexico.
UL Monroe. So it's a cupcake of a out of conference. Although ACC opponent California, the Golden Bears, watch out. The fact
they lost.
Didn't
they
makes
lose
sense. They about did. They survived about by the hair of their teeth. I think it was 15-10 or something. A 10-30 kick.
Jesus.
It was so sloppy. I think if I remember it correctly, Auburn could stop turning the ball over, but Cal couldn't hit a field goal to save their life. They missed 3 or 4 kicks. And then Cal
Auburn had 4 turnovers.
But look how many missed field goals. Cal had 4 missed field goals.
Yeah.
There was one right at the end of the half. They missed another one, a couple. missed opportunity after missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had them on the ropes.
Yep.
Couldn't get it done, though. Hate to see it. All right. Continue.
But I think they'll be fine. They'll be very average. They're going to beat, obviously they don't have the world's easiest schedule because they play Alabama. They have to play Alabama and Georgia every single year. But their other SEC teams, they kind of got like the luck of the draw. They play Arkansas, they play Kentucky, they play Vanderbilt. Obviously, they also play Oklahoma, A&M, Missouri. But like for SEC schedules, they kind of got a little bit lucky, especially for Auburn. Auburn normally gets like the worst in the conference. This year, they got it off a little bit easier.
Out of conference, at least.
Out of conference, their schedule's a joke. In conference, they get to play Vanderbilt and Kentucky.
But it all depends on how well Peyton Thorne decides to play. Because if he's just what he's going to do last year, Peyton Thorne, they're not going to succeed at all. They have a monster of a mutant of wide receiver, Cam Coleman, a freshman.
Yeah.
He's going to have to step up. They're going to have a lot of freshmen playing this year that are going to have to step up. If they can't, this is a team that can compete. I think, and just kind of stir up the pot some. But if they don't, you're going to see a 6-6 team again, maybe.
I think bare minimum.
I didn't even realize last year how they got to bowl eligibility. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you.
Pure luck of the draw.
Every week, I swear they lost. Yeah, and they somehow ended up 6-6. And then I believe they got beat down in the bowl game. Could be wrong. Could be right. I don't know. Can we look that up? Let's look that up here.
They did. They lost 31-13 to Maryland.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I figured. Yeah. I knew it was Maryland. I couldn't remember if they actually were the ones getting beat or giving.
Well, they got to a bowl game last year. The same way I say they get to a bowl game this year is they got to play Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas.
Yeah.
This year, they play Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. And Kentucky's going to be that hardest game of those three. But I still think they probably win this game just because Auburn somehow finds
keep in mind for all of the SEC, and then I'll let you finish up here. Remember, keep in mind, all the SEC opponents, you play the same teams again next year, but flip-flop the home and away side.
Yeah.
So all these teams they play this year, they're going to play again next year. All right, continue.
So, for me, I think they go 6-6, 7-5, maybe. Maybe they can pull out one against Oklahoma or get lucky or something. But I don't think they're anything special. And I feel the same way about Kentucky too. Is that Kentucky is they're a 6-6 Merchants. You know what I mean? They'll get to a bowl game, but they're not going to do it impressively. They'll have one great game at the beginning of the season, but I don't see anything special with Kentucky this year. I don't know about you.
Yeah, Brock Vandagriff goes there. They picked up a couple other guys out of the portal. They lose Liam Cohen, the OC. They lost star running back Ray. Forget his last name. But it's really just going to depend on. Can they consistently win? Because again, there's such a roller coaster of a team each year where they'll be on a really high, and then they'll lose, and they'll just be down so low. This past year, they put a whooping on Florida, rushed for over 200 yards. Then they go to Athens the next week and lose by 30 something.
Yeah.
So I need consistency from Kentucky, and that's what's. I think they'll be better than 6-6. They're always better than that. 8-4. Usually is where they usually end up. 8-4, 9-3. So
yeah, I will give Stoops credit. I was just looking at this right now. They just recently, this past season, were able to finally reach a over 500 winning percentage all time.
There you go. That's all Mark. That's Mark Stoops right there.
They are 652 and 647.
There we go.
No, I mean, there's a lot of, I think they're just, they're the average Kentucky team, mid, boring, but they'll go bowling.
There you go.
So Kentucky fans won't be that upset because with how bad the history of that football program is, just in general, I mean, you can't be upset at mediocre football.
All right. Where are we at right now? You finish up.
So number 12, I'll just do the last couple in order. Number 12, I have Florida.
Okay.
I just don't really see much of Florida this year. Their schedule is brutal. Their team, talent-wise, is kind of in the same spot they were last year. Not crazy improvement anywhere. I just don't see this as a great year for them, just because the schedule is so difficult, and it's played out in the worst way possible for them too.
Yeah.
I just don't see them being able to do anything special. I say their ceiling is 7-6, their floor is 5-7. But if they go 5-7, I don't think Willie keeps his job.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Billy.
Yeah.
It'll
be fun. Yeah. Very interesting to see there. For sure.
Yeah.
And then who do you got rounding out?
So last three, the losers at the bottom. I got Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. All three of them will not be going to the bowl game. All three of them will be arguing about who fires their head coach first. I think Arkansas loses Sam Pittman early in the year, but
I don't think Mississippi State's gonna be firing their coach soon just because they just hired.
I would say that, but they also fired their coach, their last coach, after one season.
Yeah, but I think they have their guy now.
I would hope for them.
I think Jeff Lebby is a really good coach, a very offensively gifted person.
Yeah.
So I just don't think they're gonna just pull him. I think they expect to not have a great year this year, but this is going to be one of those guys you're going to have to give like another year or two. 3 years is going to be the max.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm going to speed run through these since you kind of hit most of them. I'll start at the bottom though and work my way up. 16 through 14, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Fight over where they want to place. I think Vanderbilt's in its own tier.
Which one? Who's the worst is what they're fighting over right now.
Vanderbilt's the absolute worst.
By
Arkansas,
far.
Mississippi State. I got Mississippi State ranked ahead of Arkansas. I think they're in a better spot.
Yeah, I have a better coach. Is the biggest thing.
Yeah. If Arkansas's quarterback play can be a little all right, decent this year, maybe they can get a couple wins, but nothing I'm expecting.
I just don't see it this year.
13 through 10. I got Auburn. This is in order from 13 to 10.
Okay.
I got Auburn, Florida, South Carolina, and Kentucky. I like Florida's roster a little more than Auburn's. Auburn's recruiting better as of late. They're getting a lot of top-tier guys out of in-state guys, which is big because those are recruiting battles over Alabama. But quarterback play, I'll take Mertz over Peyton Thorne any day of the week. I think Florida's got just a smidge better offensive weapons. I would take Auburn's defense, but offensively, you need points to score in this league. So I'm going to take Florida. Even Florida last year scored points. They just couldn't win because their defense couldn't stop it. So I'd much rather have that and fix it. Florida did bring in a couple of transfers in the secondary this year. They brought in a defensive tackle, I know, from Penn. So we'll see. They got, one of those transfers, Austin Turner. I think he came from Washington, or I believe. But then they got Cormani McClain back from Colorado. So,
but
maybe he's walked on. I would expect him to be. If not, he'll have some sort of role. But I expect the defense to be maybe better, but I don't know. I've been thinking that maybe they'll improve for years now, so I don't know. Until it's kind of those, if you have to see it to believe it, things. But if you see it, maybe. But against good opponents too, because if they're beating up on Samford, and if that's the case, I don't know. Florida's schedule this year doesn't help at all. They don't really get a cupcake anywhere. Samford, heck, they might lose to Samford. I don't know.
They almost lost to Samford when I went to that game a couple of years ago.
Massive game, Miami, week 1.
I think that's the tone setter for them.
That is the tone setter for both programs because it's kind of like a prove it year for both. So is if Napier wins that game, will help himself out a little bit, but then you got to turn around week 3, you get A&M, and then you get UCF right down the road as well. Mm-hmm. You have Georgia, LSU, Texas, Ole Miss, Florida State. I mean, it's a gauntlet. But again, I think Florida might be another one of those teams where they could be, let's just say they get to 6-6, 7-5.
Yeah.
Let's just say. They're not going to the playoff, but it's like they just ran through a gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they may go 4-8 again or 5-7 again, but it's like, again, the offense played well enough, but the defense sold out again.
Yeah.
So does that mean you got to fire Austin Armstrong and get another guy, or does that fall on
I think they
shoulders?
will. I think here's the thing. No matter
I haven't seen anything from Armstrong that's told me that he's a good enough coordinator.
Yeah. I think if they lose to Miami, he probably gets fired out of desperation.
I don't think so. They would have to get utterly destroyed, and they would almost need to, and it would have to be like a non-turnover type game from Florida where like their defense just keeps getting pinned back.
If they gave up over 30 points to Miami at home.
They're not firing anybody after week 1. I think they would have to be like a USC spot where they rank like bottom. Mm-hmm. They're like in the bottom percentile of defense, and it's like, and it's week 8, and they're giving up 30 plus points a game.
Yeah,
that's what I would have to see.
Because I think whatever happens, if Armstrong gets fired, it's a desperation move to keep the job.
Maybe.
Because for me, because I saw Florida. I saw it happening.
The key is
in 2021 with Dan Mullen when they fired what's his face? Who was that coordinator they had forever? Terrible defensive coordinator.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The DC.
Yeah, they fired him right after that Samford game. They gave up 40 points to Samford at home,
something like that.
But it was a desperation move because we all knew Dan Mullen wasn't going to last a year.
I think
it was just I'm willing to make changes kind of thing.
I think a bigger question is going to be the offensively, because Napier's still calling the plays, even though they have like an assistant OC or co-OC or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's Napier still calling the plays. So you kind of have to say, just like, listen, if you're going to go down, you're going to go down swinging your own plays. So we'll see. Again, like the offense had its moments where they would be scoring a bunch, but again, the defense wouldn't stop them. But then there'd be moments where the offense couldn't do anything, predictable as always. And then again, the defense wasn't doing anything. So
and they lost their best back from
special teams. Florida.
Oh my gosh,
that's got to be better on special teams. If not, the penalties, self-inflicted wounds. Mm-hmm. It's got to be like a full 180 for them.
It's not even. It's the discipline penalties for them too.
Yeah,
the amount of stupid stuff that their players were getting tricked into doing, to gain 15 yards on unsportsmanlike conducts against what was it in the Florida State game? A Florida player spit, and they pushed Florida State into field goal position before the end of the half.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, there's stupid stuff.
Just
South Carolina, I have above. I think Lenore Sellers is going to be a sneaky good quarterback for them. Mm-hmm. They really like him there.
Yeah,
I think Shane Beamer's a really good coach. A lot of people may not say that.
I like Shane Beamer.
He says a lot of stuff that may be a little quirky, but I think he comes from the right place. Yeah. I think the players really love him, and it just now you need to see the on-field results. So will they get that? We'll see. I don't see him being any jeopardy of being fired or of any sort right now. So I think they want to see what Lenore Sellers got, and then they'll go from there. Kentucky, just at 10, just middle of the pack where they usually are. Well, we kind of already talked about them. All right, so 9 through 6.
Okay.
We'll go OU.
Okay.
LSU at 8.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should have been a national title team last year if their defense had any sort of respect to themselves.
Yeah.
You think Florida's defense was bad? LSU was just up there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had a Heisman winning quarterback and lost 3 games.
They had a USC level defense last year.
It was
so I can't wait for this game. I can't wait for this game this year.
I mean, Miller Moss and Nussmeier might trade blows for about 10 touchdowns pop. So
it might be beautiful football.
It's
or the ugliest game you ever see. Oh, it's gonna
be a great color game.
Oh yeah.
Again, still don't like neutral sites, so let's fix that.
Yeah.
Kudos to UCLA heading to Baton Rouge, but not USC. So
I wonder whose decision it was because Florida State.
Well, Lincoln Riley keeps trying to skid out. He's too scared to play the SEC. We've seen that. So they've been trying to get out of this game for like 2 years now. They couldn't. So, all right. A&M, I got 7. We already talked about him. It's going to be up to Wegman to kind of guide that ship. I think Elko is a great hire, and he's going to turn that place around.
Yeah.
Tennessee, I got at 6. Nico comes in. Himaliava. I think I said that right, actually. Listen, receiver-wise, they bring back Brew McCoy. I think they lose Squirrel White, but they have a couple other guys that are really good. And so offensively, they should be all good.
Yeah.
All good. It's going to be whether Nico's going to be able to play well in a full season. He looked really good in the bowl game last year against Iowa's defense, which is no slack regardless of who's playing for them.
Yeah.
So can he do it now for a full season where people are now going to have tape on you? Because we saw this with Joe Milton. Orange Bowl looked like the next great one.
Yeah.
Not very good of a year last year. So different quarterback, higher expectations almost. Let's see what we got. Defensively, they should be really good on the D-line. James Pierce is going to lead that group up there.
Yeah.
If the secondary can play decent, they've struggled the last 2 years or so, I want to think. But again, I think they're going to be good up front in the linebacker spot. It's going to be that, I think, secondary-wise, if they can improve, you're looking at a decent ball club there. Tennessee. Missouri is a very interesting team. At 5, the schedule sets up really nice. Brady Cook comes back for his senior year. They get Luther Burden, who I think is the best receiver in the country, hands down.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
They lose Cody Schrager, but I think that Eli Drinkwitz has done such a great job rebuilding. And so I really like where they are. They lose their DC to LSU, but I think they've done a good enough job at filling those holes that they're going to be good.
Yeah, I think so too.
They go to Bama. I forget which week, but that's a big one right there. If you circle that one down, because I expect both teams to be pretty solid. Just ahead of them, I have Bama at 4. Jalen Milroe is back. New regime with DeBoer. And on offensively, I think offensively they're going to be really good. Defensively is where my question marks are. Spring game, they got lit up like a firecracker. On the secondary side, even though they got guys like Malachi Moore back there. Even up front, you think they'd be good. Can Kane Womack's new system be what they want it to be? We'll see. That's where my big questions are. Offensively, though, you got guys. Jalen Miller is going to be fine there. I'm interested to see how they want to run that offense. Do they completely revamp it, the DeBoer style, or do they maybe mix and match?
I would assume it's a bit of a mix and match, but also, Kalen DeBoer's going in for the long term as a head coach. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just been throw everything out the window. This is my job. This is my house.
He might do that.
He's like, look, I'll show you guys what kind of offense will get you to the national championship.
Right.
We're gonna, we can have that conversation later. But
that's true. That is very true. Yeah, so we'll see how they do. They're going to be Alabama. So
Alabama.
Are they
Alabama?
Yeah,
they're still going to be near the top.
Will they be as good as they were the last few years? We'll see how they do with all these transfers leaving. But okay,
I just think first year you got to give them a little bit of slack, right? As much slack as Alabama's going to get. We both have them in our top 5.
Which they won't give them much slack.
Yeah, we both have them number 4 in the SEC. So we're giving them slack as in they'll go 10-2. We're not. The fall of Alabama is not here yet. They landed possibly the best coach they could have with the circumstances, and
for sure.
I still think they're going to be good, just not as good as they are under the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah, 100% agree. Now I look defensively. They brought in LT Overton from A&M on the D line, which is a nice add. I'm just, they're going to be. If the defensively is where my question marks are with them, because I've even seen like they're going to be all good, but can they be like that Alabama standard?
Yeah,
this is what it's going to be at. Rounding out my top three, I got Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia. You can kind of fight however you want with those three. I think those three are the three, at least on paper. Ewers, Dart, and Beck, I think, are the three top QBs in the conference.
Yep.
All of them have weapons offensively. All of them have really good guys defensively. I mean, that's just who I've seen the top three teams. The mix of these three teams have been who I've seen in the conference championship predictions from what I've watched and read. Georgia, Carson Beck comes back. Offensively, you lose Bowers and McConkey, and then Rara Thomas just got kicked off the team today because of off the field antics.
Yep.
But aside from all of that, you get Trevor Etienne out of the portal, Colby Young, who is a very guy to keep an eye on. Very good receiver from Miami. They got London Humphreys from Vanderbilt, but you have Oscar Delp coming back. You have Dominic Lovett still there. Like they have weapons across the board offensively. They bring back one of the best OTAC offensive line groups in the country, one of the more experienced groups. Defensively, Malachi Starks in the back end, Michael Williams up front with, Nazir Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, Jamal Jarrett. You're going to have guys at that second level. It's going to be C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Smile London, running the shots. Like they got dudes. Ole Miss, Dart at the QB spot. You lose Quinshon Judkins, but you have Ulysses Gilbert still there.
Yep.
Who is going to be just fine, I think. Bring in Juice Wells. You keep Trey Harris. There's your two guys on the outside. Defensively, you bring in Walter Nolan, Princely Umamalin. I'm going to figure out the name one of these days. Prince U, I'm going to call him, from Florida. They brought in a bunch of other guys to help out in the secondary because defensively they were not very good. They were okay, not very good. They weren't LSU and Florida bad, but they also weren't where they need to be. So, and then Texas, Quinn Ewers, CJ Baxter's at running back.
Yeah.
You bring in Isaiah Bond from Bama. You also bring in, what's their tight end from Bama as well? What's his name here?
No.
Not Jadavion Sanders. He just
drafted. No, that's who keeps coming up. Yeah, I'm like, not him.
Amari Niblack.
Okay.
So they bring in Amari Niblack, and then they also have a bunch of guys defensively. They got a really good transfer from UTSA on defense. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but really good defensively. They're going to be a really good team. Sarkisian's recruiting at a really good level.
Yeah.
And so, expectations couldn't be higher for this team. You go to the playoff last year. Can you build on it now? Because Texas, you haven't seen them successfully do something like that in a while, where they've kind of stacked good years on top of each other. So if they can do that, well, you're looking at really good stuff. All right. Let's breeze through the rest of the SEC stuff, since that took the majority of the time. SEC predictions. Heath, you already said yours.
Yep, and you kind of sound like you said yours.
Mine was Georgia, Ole Miss.
Yep. Yeah.
So
1 and 2. I think that's a pretty good. I had Ole Miss just a little bit below, just because I'm not as. I think Jackson Dart is the third of those three quarterbacks for me, and I think there's a little bit of a gap. That's the reason I had them a little bit below, is I just don't think Jackson Dart is as good as Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, you're fine there. I just I think both the teams are really good. I could see Texas slipping against Georgia and A&M, and then maybe just because there's no division, so if you just end up having a good year, but with this new 12-team playoff, is it the worst thing to miss out on the conference title game? Let's say you're 10-2.
Is the bye. That's the biggest benefit of doing it.
Yeah, but if you're 10-2, you miss your conference title, but you're still in the playoff. You get a free bye anyway. So and then you get the home game. So I mean, you kind of works out.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go to our sleeper team now. Sleeper team for me is Missouri. I was talking about it a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I think they're really like a team really need to keep your eye on. They're at A&M.
Yeah.
At Bama, and then at South Carolina. But they get Oklahoma, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas at home. So I think this is a really good team. And they don't have to play Georgia this year. They don't have to play Tennessee. They don't have to play Florida. The big game really is going to be Alabama and A&M. Outside of that, I mean, really sets up nicely. So that's my team. I could see them making a push for the SEC title game.
My team is A&M. I just think they have such a favorable schedule.
Yeah.
Like out of anybody in the SEC, their hardest game by far is Texas, and the next hardest game is an out-of-conference game against Notre Dame at home. Every other game on their schedule, to me, is super winnable, and I think they're going to be favored in the majority of the games they play. The only games they won't be favored in is probably Missouri, LSU, and Texas. So to me, I'm like, of any game, I'm like, these they're probably going to have a great year. They have a great coach. I think Texas A&M they have a really good chance of making like a big splash this year.
Oh yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, they're my sleeper team. I think Connor Wigman, I think he'll grow a little bit too under a coach who's just a little bit better at getting the best out of players. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
what's your let's go to best matchup of the year now? Yes.
Okay. I picked 3 just because I couldn't pick just one. My top 3 though were Georgia versus Alabama. I think there's gonna be some big fireworks in that one. That's gonna be a really fun game. Number 2, renewed rivalry, Texas versus Texas A&M. I think that game is gonna be awesome to watch. That game is gonna be super loud. That you might need to turn the TV down because that game is loud to hear. And then my number 3 is Ole Miss versus LSU. I think that game's gonna be really fun to watch.
My favorite teams or my best matchup, Georgia Bama. I think it's the clear cut best favorite, and I only did the one. I just think for the reasons of, Georgia's supposed to be the top team now.
Yeah.
The one team that always got them and got in their way was Bama. Now you have to go to Bama. You're supposed to be the top dogs now.
Yeah.
You have a new coach, new roster, and you have to go to their stadium though. Can you officially kind of stamp your foot as the clear-cut team in the conference?
Yeah.
And because if they do, you can't use the Saban stuff. Saban's not there anymore now.
Yeah.
Can they now kind of get past the boogeyman almost? Or does DeBoer beat them? And now it's just like you still can't beat Bama.
Yeah.
Because that would put Smart at 1-6 versus Alabama.
Now
he's 1 so a lot on both sides here. A lot of stakes. I think it's even higher than the Texas one. The fact that Texas coming into the conference outside of just Texas fans just being annoying, that's it. Yeah. I mean, this is a lot of pressure on both teams. More so, I think, on Georgia. I think the expectations are higher than what Bama's are. And so if you go in there and lay a dud, it's going to be all over. So
they're going to be all over Georgia.
Yeah. Quickly, my best quarterback, I think, is Carson Beck this year.
Okay.
I think he's going to be. I think he has the best offensive weapons around them, and I think he's just the best quarterback in the conference. I think he's projected. I saw the first mock draft ESPN came out with. He was number 1 overall. So that doesn't mean anything really.
Yeah,
it means he's really good, but I just think you saw what he's been able to do last year. Now let him do it this year.
Yeah,
with another full year under the belt, and let him keep rolling. Best player Luther Burden. I was going back and forth because I thought Malachi Starks is a really good safety from Georgia.
Yeah.
Best safety in the conference, for my opinion. But Luther Burden, best receiver in the country. He is just everything. He's the engine that goes for Missouri. And he always finds himself a way to get open and makes big plays and big-time moments. So Luther Burden's my guy. I don't know who your quarterback and player are.
So, yeah, funny story. I actually also have Luther Burden as my best player because to me, I was looking at it and I was like, there's really not a guy. Like, he is far and away to me the best player at his position in the country. Like, I think without a doubt, and there's nobody else like that where there's not even really like a conversation. It's like, it's obviously Luther Burden. If you don't think it's Luther Burden, number one, you're wrong. And number two, you're going to see him destroy some teams in the backfield this year then. I mean, like some corners down the line. You're going to see some crazy stuff. And only thing I disagree with you on is my best QB is Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn, great year last year, took Texas to the playoff. I'm excited to see what he does this year, but of the two, I think it's really 1A, 1B for me. With Beck and Ewers, I think they're really comparable in skill. I think they're really close to each other. I just slightly leaned to Ewers because I just saw more of him last year. I just saw less of Beck, especially since Ewers played a lot of games. He played the playoff games. He played, he played at Alabama. There was just a lot of games where I got to see Quinn Ewers in big time moments make big time plays to lead his team to victory. So that's why I just give him the slight edge. But I don't disagree with you when you say Carson Beck is the best quarterback in the SEC. I mean, like I said, I think it's 1A, 1B for me.
Yeah. No, I get that. 100%. Yeah. So there's our SEC preview. I will feel free to cut that. I'll probably cut this video at this spot and make it like its own video. So that way, if you just want to see our SEC preview, you can.
Yes.
But feel free to stick around because we have our best